Kristen with Nerdette's NewsStand, and it is 2019. I am reviewing this. In 2 hours from now, you are listening and learning of an amazing love story. And it is also 1994, and I'm hiding in my closet with my flashlight, reading my first Batman comic, and learning about death for the first time. And in a week from now, you will be watching my premiere of the season finale of Watchmen and, enjoying it. So I don't know if you understand how Dr. Manhattan talks, you're going to understand this review a lot more. It all comes from his perception. And we learned mostly of that, I think it was issue 4 of Watchmen, when we're talking about the Watchmaker. So if you are new to this channel, don't forget to subscribe. Also, if you enjoy the video, don't forget to hit like. As always, there are links in the description to support the channel, but by sharing or leaving a comment, trust me, anything helps. And we are going to talk episode 8. The last before the final, a god walks into a bar. And this episode had a few cringy moments. For the most part, it was absolutely fantastic. It told a great love story, and I'm going to go through it like I always do, but I was really impressed how they handled Manhattan. I was really impressed how they handled the entire situation and some of the things that we learned. So it opens up on a celebration of the anniversary of Vietnam Day, Victory in Vietnam Day. And a god literally walks into Eddie's bar. I like the little throwback there. So Dr. Manhattan sits down with Angela with 2 beers. This is the first time they're meeting. And most of the episode is going to come from that viewpoint. It is in, classic Manhattan style. Like I said, we're going to jump around a lot because of that. But Angela is commemorating her parents' death. That's why she's there drinking alone. And she's kind of initially dubious to believing that he's the real Dr. Manhattan. But she's definitely intrigued. So he explains that he's not really been on Mars this entire time. It's more of a hologram program that goes through a specific set of things he does. And it makes people believe he's there. He's been, in fact, on Europa, which is a moon of Jupiter. We found out before that is where Ozzy is. So we get to see him create life. Like mentioned, in the comic, with simply the wave of a hand, he creates tundra, terrain, atmosphere, and eventually an amniotic lake, which is kind of the center creation for everything there. It's where the humans grow. Not only that, but the animals also. So we get to eat meat, Adam and Eve, which they all come from this specific viewpoint. He also brings his manor from when he was a child, and he brings that for them to live in. And we learn why he and his father fled to England when he was just a child, because of his Jewish ancestry in that time. And after his mother leaves the family for an SS Army officer, and why the manor feels like home to him. The Lord and Lady of this manor are helping those in need, helping those displaced by the war, refugees, such like that. And when his father asks him for a piece of bread, he kind of sneaks around the manor and hides in a closet because he starts to see the Lord and Lady begin to make love, right? Well, the way they described it is not only joyful, but it's the first time he knows of love. They do end up hearing him in the closet, and he runs out. Well, at dinner that night, the Lord and the Lady of the manor then asked to speak with John alone. Of course, they went to talk about what he's seen, but we're going to get more than just that. They speak with him about, obviously, what he saw, and we learn that they had a child pass away that would have been about his age, and they're trying for another. They describe making love and sex in a beautiful fashion. They describe it as a good thing, a beautiful thing, the creation of life, that it's God's will. They do a really good job with this. I actually really liked getting this viewpoint of it. So they end up gifting him a Bible with a small description of what God is, what Genesis is, and they ask only one favor in return. When he becomes a man, all grown up, make it his purpose to make something beautiful. Of course, he agrees, and that's why he created Europa. By creating life on Europa, 7 decades later, he finally fulfills that promise to them, and the Adam and Eve we see on Europa is in their, not in his image, not in Manhattan's image, but it's in theirs, kind of to honor that first time he felt or saw any sort of love. So they executed this whole thing beautifully. But not only that, but the reason he left Europa was to find love, his own love, and that's when he meets Angela. So Angela does explain a little bit why she hates Dr. Manhattan. She blames him for the death of her parents because of his intervention with Vietnam, and we do learn that he kind of does, obviously regret what happened in Vietnam, and, goes on by saying, have you ever done something you knew you'd regret? And of course, every single person in the world has. But we also learn it was Angela's idea on how to conceal his identity. They use cadavers with no next of kin, and they have birth certificates, of course, they have social security numbers, so he would essentially be free to live out his life in public and have papers and be able to have a normal life, have some sort of normalcy. And that's when we meet Cal, who the original person died of a heart attack, and that's the form that they end up choosing. Dr. Manhattan also reveals that they kind of have a deadline. They have 10 years, and it's going to end tragically, and it's kind of a good question that we'll kind of go back and forth with. If you knew you could be happy for 10 years, would it be worth it? So there's a pivotal point in their relationships, which comes 6 months into it. He's looking into the future. They're making love, but Dr. Manhattan is more concerned about the upcoming fight because he knows it's coming. He can't concentrate. So it ends up coming. It ends up actually happening. They fight. And she ends up telling him to leave, which leads to this elegant solution. Eventually, and we'll get there. He teleports to Karnak, and he walks in to see kind of a disheveled Adrian. He's upset over the production of bombs. He doesn't understand why people do it, but it's been 24 years since they've been together. And they see, the continuation of the fabrication of the alien incursions and the squid hoax over New York. We do get to see how they're perpetrating that. So I love the little jab taken at PC culture they kind of hear. And I don't know if it was a jab or not. I just found it mildly entertaining. When Adrian asked why Dr. Manhattan chose a black man, and he says, Adrian says, it's not the 80s anymore. This kind of appropriation is considered quite problematic. It's 2009 and a lot has changed while you were on Europa. But Dr. Manhattan asked how he knew he was on Europa, and he says the little elephant told me. So we're looking that it's got something to do with Lady True, but we're not actually going to see her through the entirety of this episode, so everything with her is going to have to be wrapped up in the season finale. Then we learn of Plan A, and it's the device that's going to work to give Dr. Manhattan normalcy. So Adrian made this device long ago. It's eradicated with tachyon particles, and it's Plan A for amnesia, right? Essentially, it reduces him to immortal. He forgets that he's Dr. Manhattan. He forgets he has powers, save for emergencies only. But it gives him a chance at normalcy with Angela that he never got to have with Sally or with Lori. So it's kind of, honestly perfect. So he has one means of unfinished business, and that's with Angela's grandfather, Will, who's suited justice. But Adrian wants something in exchange for this, Plan A for amnesia. And then we see this beautifully crafted part between Adrian and Dr. Manhattan. He says, he saved humanity to be ignored. He saved the entire world from nuclear annihilation, And nobody knows but for a few people. And he only wants one question answered. Will he ever get to see Utopia? Dr. Manhattan says yes, of course, but not here. He explains Europa to him. Who he created a paradise with worshippers. It's perfect for Adrian. It's all he's ever wanted, and he's finally getting it. Well, we do obviously know that it's not all Adrian ever wanted, but at that moment in time, it was. So John gets what he wants, a life with Angela, a real life, and she inserts the device into his forehead, and they plan this story of an accident. They plan to move to Tulsa to marry, but they had to have a backup story, of course. So when they go back to the bar, and we get a first-hand introduction to the first temporal loop that we're going to talk about, and that's the chicken or the egg, the old story. What came first, the chicken or the egg? He tells Angela about them having 3 children. They have a conversation about that, and he says, it's kind of cringe, but it's important. So he talks about the passing on of his power. And then he has to add in there, and I hate it so much, but it is important to the plot. He won't do it without their consent. Oh, God. Okay, so the cringe continues, but it is important. He can transfer his atomic components to some organic material, and if that material is consumed, his powers can be passed on. And I do have a feeling that's going to be a pivotal plot point in the next one, but it all leads to us to the current time, and John is finally awake. He's confused, but he's awake. He does remember slowly, kind of, and he's foggy. He's not entirely sure, when or who he is. He gets there, it just takes a minute. So we hear there are 3 kids screaming. There's a blue man on the swimming pool. They're freaked out, obviously enough. And John just zaps them away. Bye kids, sorry. So Angela's pissed. Mama Bear is pissed. So come to find out they are safe. They're with Will, their grandfather, at the movie theater. And this was all set up. The unfinished business I talked about before with Will was the fact that for the most optimal outcome in this tragic situation that's going to happen, the kids had to be safe. So it does make sense. John is speaking then with Will, 10 years ago, and Angela at the same time. And like I said in the beginning, you have to understand how John kind of works to understand how all of these temporal causality loops work. So he tells Will of his plans with Angela, his love for her, even though he can feel her emptiness inside, how she just wants a family. It's beautiful. I love it all. So Angela asks John to ask her grandfather Will about Judd and the 7th Cavalry, Cyclops, how he knew that the robe was in the closet. And Will just comes back with, who's Judd Crawford? He didn't know before, but he sure knows now. So it's a very weird moment. It's another one of that paradox again, right? That temporal loop. What caused what? Did her asking cause him to look into Judd Crawford and essentially cause his death? Or was Will having the original idea? But it kind of comes down to both. It doesn't matter where the idea came from. The action's already happened. So Angela wants John to kind of stop messing around. She's getting sick of it. She's telling him of the plan. 7th Cavalry's coming, Lady True, everything else. And John just says, they're already here. They're parked across the street in a truck. And on the back of that truck is a tachyonic cannon, which we'll use to involuntarily transport him and then eventually destroy him. And he says there's no way to stop it. I kind of feel like there would be. I don't know. I just feel like John's given up. But if there truly is no way to stop it, if you've seen all the essential outcomes, then I guess I can go with that. I can suspend disbelief for a few minutes. She's not having that answer. She is refusing to believe that this is their tragic ending that he talked about 10 years ago. So she gets ready. She gets all of her gun, her Kevlar, everything, and she's ready to go to war. John loves her so much in this moment. This is the moment where he realizes long ago that he was going to fall in love. Like, I love everything about it. I love the romance. I can't help it. I'm a girl. So it's beautiful. She's unwilling to lose him and willing to die for him. Like, that is true fucking love. So the fight begins, and it's really quite a good scene. You could probably look it up on YouTube if you haven't seen it. It's really well executed. It's great. So Angela is on the verge of death, and John shows up, saves her life, and finishes off the 7th Cavalry, right? Everybody's dead. She's so happy. They won, right? John was wrong. She can save him. No, except he wasn't. It was, there was one last 7th Cavalry who, musters up the strength to use the tachyonic canic, and John's gone. He's transported wherever they are, in whatever abandoned warehouse they are. But that kind of does beg the question throughout the whole thing. Is 10 years worth a tragic ending? Don't all relationships, by definition, end tragically, whether it's a long life together and death, or whether it's a breakup? Essentially, all relationships end tragically, so is happiness and love, all of that, even if it's temporarily, worth it? And yeah, obviously the answer is yes, but we do get a post-credit scene, because that's the end. John's gone. We see Ozzy. He's getting tomatoes on his face, and it's by, like, his minions. So they're asking, will you stay? Every single time he says no, he's refusing. So they put him in jail. He's reading Fog Dancing. The original Adam, the first one to come out of the amniotic lake, comes in, and we find out that is the game warden that we've been hearing about all along. He brings them his yearly cake, and he wants to go home. Like Ozzy wants to go home. He doesn't want to be there, but there's a horseshoe in the cake, and he's excited. I think he thinks he's going to tunnel out. So Ozzy kind of feeds on conflict, feeds on solving something, and he thought this being worshipped and was everything he ever wanted. And he realized that without any sort of conflict, without him being able to solve anything, he wasn't going to be happy. So now he's solving how to get out of jail. I don't know. I really, really enjoyed this episode. I don't have, like I said, there was those 2 really weird, cringy lines in it. But other than that, it was fantastic. And I cannot, it's a catch-22. I can't wait for the season finale to find out what happens. But then again, it's the first time in a long time I've been able to say for a single show that I don't want it to be over, because I like it so much. Oh, it's such a weird feeling. You love to hate something and then end up loving it so much. So I really think with the ratings that this show is getting, it's quite high. It's the highest viewed show, new show of the year. So I do think we are going to get a season 2. But as far as the finale goes, I am going to be doing that as a premiere next Monday. So make sure you're there. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye. Hey, I want to give a huge shout out to my Subscribe Star and Patreons. You guys literally make this channel possible. Thank you so much. Sanjuro, Way Else One, BG Torrance, Black Knight Fool, Brucey, Grand Smear, Jeffrey Allen Carnes, Jeremy Burtz, Mike Buckner, Robert, and Timothy French. You guys are freaking amazing. Thank you so much, and make sure you like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.